very shortly afterwards, I heard my foxhole buddy, they were yelling at my foxhole buddy, and then he got pulled out of the hole. I'm surprised they didn't shoot him. But as they left, I heard them try to determine whether or not there was anyone else in the hole. My foxhole buddy said, no, no, no. But they took an automatic weapon and sprayed the bottom of our foxhole. Luckily, I was back far enough so none of the bullets hit me, but one of their bullets hit the stock of my rifle and split that in half. And so that was the gun that I had when I was captured. Didn't know what to do, but I thought, well, I'm in one piece. I think I better stay right where I am, because I was safe at the moment. So I did stay there all night. And at dawn, didn't hear anything. Got out of the foxhole and went up and down where our line used to be to determine whether or not there were any other GIs there. And there were not. And I should have been more careful, but not realizing that I had stepped into the German line, and they captured me at that point. Well, I was trying to think how I would get out of there without getting killed. That's about all that went through my mind. Yeah, I didn't realize that they were that close to me. So my object was to see if there was anyone else there. As it turned out, I read afterwards that there had been an order to withdraw that never got down to our squad. And so we were kind of left as a holding force for the others to get out of there. So our squad was alone, and the others were captured before I was. So I was alone during the night, and was captured the next day. Yeah, they searched me, and at that time we were right in their encampment, and there was a tank in the middle of the road, and that was holding them up from getting by it, and they thought that I was the tank driver, and I'd never been inside a tank before. So I finally convinced them that I couldn't drive that tank off the road. I wish I could have, but I didn't. And yeah, they tried to take, this is the ring. They tried to take my ring off. It wouldn't come off, and I was afraid they're going to cut my finger off. But during this time, our artillery had opened up, and everybody sought cover, me among them. And so that all happened just after I was captured. They got me on my feet, put a rifle in back of me, to my back, then marched me off along the woods. And it was cold, and I was wet from my experience in the river before. They had me walk, I was alone at that time, with my hands over my head like this, which let all the blood run down, and I froze my hands. My feet were frozen too, but not as badly as my hands. But luckily, they kept me walking, which thawed my feet out after a while. So but my hands were pretty bad, because they were wet to start with. And no gloves, they took my gloves. So my hands were, well, afterwards I would hit them together and it just sounded like a couple pieces of metal. They were pretty badly frozen. Afterwards they turned black, and the skin, most of it, peeled. Never really received any medical attention. But I remember it was quite a while before I could pick anything out of my pocket, get my fingers limbered up to pick them out. I kept them next to my body as much as I could, and they healed. And at one point, when we were going back, when they were marching us along, I didn't know really where we were going, but a medic, a German medic, stopped and interrogated me, wanted to know if I killed medics. And I sure wasn't going to say yes, I did. Actually, I hadn't, but so then after a bit, we kept on going, put us in a barn-like structure with some other prisoners. Without food or without water, they marched us through the German Black Forest, Baden, to a resort area called Baden-Baden. You weren't supposed to, but you'd grab a clump of snow every once in a while and put it in your mouth. I can remember, even though I was frightened, I remember the beauty of the Black Forest. And what they call it the Black Forest because the trees were so dense, it was almost like night. It was a beautiful place. And we could see villages off in the distance because a lot of it was high ground. In the midst of it, we crossed the Rhine River. And that was quite an experience because we crossed on a barge. And the barge was propelled by men walking along the shore. Now, the current would be going, of course, downhill. They would cross diagonally across. And they got us across the Rhine River that way. And the current really, once we got out in the current took you diagonally across the Rhine River. And it was quite an experience. This was, I think, at like dusk. We could see, but it wasn't. It was getting dark. And then we got to Baden-Baden, and they took us to a makeshift prison camp. The heat was out of oil drums. Burning pine, and I can still smell that pine. We got ourselves warm, we got something to eat, and that was one of the best places I ever was in Germany. Whenever I smell that, I think immediately of the building that we stayed in and the fires that they had when they burned pine logs. The picture comes back. Before we left, they gave us some black bread, a chunk of it. And I looked at it, I thought, am I supposed to eat this? I stuck it in my pocket. And after a while, it tasted pretty good. But really, that's all the food we had on this march, and I don't really know how long it was, but it took us quite a while. We were pretty tired. And then they moved us, as I recall, it was by truck to a place called Schlammlager, which was near Ludwigsburg. We're on a train at one point, and our planes came, and there was no identification on the railroad cars at all. They were supposed to, but they didn't, and strafed our train. The conductor on the train and the other train personnel left the train. They stopped the train and left it, and left the train to be strafed. And one of their bullets did pierce our railroad car. And I heard afterwards, and I don't know if it's true or not, that there were several that were killed. And so we learned after that if at all possible, and it did happen, No, it's when we were marching along. We weren't on the train. One of our planes came along and strafed the column of guys. I can't say column because we weren't walking in like you were marching in a parade or anything. Walking along the road. And instead of running for cover, we almost unanimously decided to stay where we were and wave. And they didn't hit anyone. So then they moved us to Stalag 7A. And it was a former stable made of concrete. And I remember that pretty vividly because because of the war, all the windows were buttoned up. At night, you couldn't have any kind of light. And what I remember so vividly was I had to go to the bathroom real bad. And there are a lot of men in this place. And the only facilities for going to the bathroom were in one corner. It was a big vat. And it was dark. And I made my way down there and went to the bathroom. But then I got lost going back. And I had a terrible time. I was really frightened. I couldn't find anything. I would feel bunks. But I did finally find my bunk and got back. But that was kind of frightening because of the darkness. Of course, there was a problem all during the capture was trying to find things that could use like toilet paper. We had a propaganda drop by the Nazis, and boy, we scurried around for that propaganda they hit. Propaganda against the United States. We scurried around and gathered all that paper we could. And then it was after that that they moved us to Stalag 7A. And that was near Moosburg. I had a lot of experiences there. There was one faucet, and I learned afterwards that one faucet served about 500 men. And most of the time they had that faucet turned off. I had an accident in my pants, and the first opportunity I got in and I rinsed off my clothes. I hung my ODs, went the next morning to get them, and somebody had stolen them. So that was the first thing. So that was my underwear. That's right, was my underwear first. And I had to have something like a fool. I washed my ODs and hung them up, and they were stolen the next day. So the only thing that was left was this windbreaker. What do we call them? I've forgotten. Anyway, it's made of poplin, windbreaker material, which is very thin. And luckily that wasn't stolen. I didn't let go of those. I wore those day and night. And I still had them on when I was liberated. After a while, we did get other windbreaker type pants to put on. And that was given to me by the church, I think a number of years before I ever got in the service. And I did take that with me, and it was a lot of comfort. I didn't have much choice because it was the only thing that I had to read. And I know I must have gone through and read it at least twice. So when I was first captured, they did search me and started to take that away. And then one of the Germans looked at it and said, "Prayer book," and gave it back to me. And I still have it. And as I said, I can't take the credit for the design of it. I did make it. I wonder today how I did such a good job on it, but Anyway, I had plenty of time, it seemed, at the time. And that was the only eating utensil that I had. And it was very difficult to keep it clean. And I remember sometimes we'd put some greasy food in it, and to get that grease, took sand and dirt and scrubbed it out with that. And then when I got a chance to rinse it out, did that. In fact, when I got water, I would take and fill that cup and put it under my bunk so I'd have some water on hand. But water was very, very scarce. You're lucky to get at the faucet when it's still running, just one faucet. It's a shame to think that one of your own buddies would steal from you, but it happened. There was a so-called dispensary, but they had very little in the way of medicines, practically nothing. I had flea bites that got infected, flea bites and lice, they were infected. I think most of them were on me. And I did go to a medic at the time, but all they did is they took some paper-type bandage and wrapped him, and they didn't even have any salve of any kind to put on him. But they were pretty badly infected. We were interrogated, but at that time it was end of the war, close to the end of the war. I don't think the Germans were about to do anything that they could probably get punished for later. They were not, did not go out of their way to help us anybody, but they were really not unkind. And they had very little to eat, and they had probably the same fleas and lice that I had.